Requirements for this lecture include knowing the basics about what a container and an image are in Docker, and understanding the layers, or at least the basics of layers, and know a few things about Docker Hub. So this lecture is going to be all about image tags and how to upload them to Docker Hub. And there's actually a lot to tags because they're not as intuitive as you might think when you first start using them. And they need to actually be in a specific format in order to work with a registry, specifically with Docker Hub. And then I'll talk to you about the relationship between the tags you assign to your images and the IDs of those images. So let's get started. Okay, so first, let's talk about tagging. So Docker image tag help. So images don't technically have a name, even though we kind of refer to them like that when we're talking casually. If we do a Docker image ls, you notice that there's no name column. So besides the image ID, which none of us are going to remember those, right? So we have to refer to them by 3 different pieces of information. Now on this screen, for the image ls command, we actually only see 2 of them. Over on the left, we're seeing the repository, and then we're seeing the tag. Now the repository is actually made up of either the username or the organization / the repository. Now here, we're only dealing with official repository images. So we're only going to see the actual repository name. And we mentioned earlier that the special images that are considered official are the only ones that get the right to just be called their name of the repository, not the actual name of the organization / repository. But if we go over to Docker Hub and I just do a search on MySQL, we'll find that there's actually an organization, not only just the official MySQL, which is just referred to as MySQL, but there's the MySQL organization with a MySQL-server, which seems to be pretty popular as well. It's got over 1 million downloads. And it looks like what it is here is this is actually the same MySQL server, but it's actually created by the MySQL team at Oracle. So if I actually wanted to download it, you'll notice here on the right, I have to do a docker pull MySQL / MySQL-server. I can actually click the copy button and I copy this in. It will actually download this unique organizational based image. And if I do a Docker image ls again, you'll notice that the repository name includes the organization name. Now on my account on Docker Hub, I'm known as Brett Fisher. You can see up in the top right. So if I were to look at my dashboard and look at my images that I have that are public. So for example, let's look at the Node Mongo app. So in order to download this, I would need to do docker pull Brett Fisher / Node Mongo app. So now that we understand how the repository is named, what is the tag for? So the tag is not quite a version and it's not quite a branch, but it is a lot like get tags. So it's kind of a little bit of both. It's really just a pointer to a specific image commit and really could be anything inside that repository. If we went back to Docker Hub for a minute, and we went up to the MySQL official image, and you'll see on the front page, it has these different tags. And what they're trying to say here is that the 8.0.0 and the 8.0 and the 8 are all tags for the same image ID. And if I scroll up here and look at the tags button, I get a full detailed list of all the various tags that they've given to the MySQL. So let's go to Nginx, which is what we've been working on a lot. And we'll see in here that it isn't just numbers, but it's actually names as well. And it's important to point out that these are actually all the exact same image, and Docker's smart enough to know that. So if I go over to my command line, and I see that I already have the Nginx latest downloaded, and if I looked at the web page, I see the latest tag right here, but it's also called mainline. So what if I did a docker pull Nginx mainline? And what this is telling us is that it actually already knew that based on the image ID, this image is already in my cache. And now if I do a Docker image ls again, I'll see two different Nginx's. And as you'll notice, they have the exact same image ID because they're not really stored twice in the cache. And again, this goes back to a lot of the savings. These tags are just labels that point to an actual image ID, and we can have many of them all point to the same one. So how do I make new labels? Well, I could make my own Docker file and create my own custom image, but we can also retag existing Docker images. So I can just do a Docker image tag Nginx Brett Fisher Nginx. Now, the format of this command is the image that I'm going to give a new tag to goes first, and then the new tag that I want to give it. And if I did a Docker image tag help again, just to refresh your memory, it shows source image and an optional tag, and then the new image and optional tag. So if you don't specify the tag, it'll always default to latest. And latest doesn't actually always mean latest, because I technically could take some old software and tag it latest. There's nothing special about it, but it is just kind of the default. Really, I wish they would just call it default and not latest, so it is a little confusing. But generally on Docker Hub, especially when you're using official images, you can trust that the latest is generally the latest stable version of the software that you want to use. So let's do a Docker image ls again. Now notice what's happened. I have added a new tag to an existing image that I didn't make. It shows the same image ID, and now it's labeled with my username and a new repo that doesn't exist yet on Docker Hub. If we went and looked at my dashboard, I don't have anything called Brett Fisher /Nginx. So what if I did a Docker image push, similar to like a git push, Brett Fisher Nginx. Denied. Requested access to the resource is denied. So it clearly tried to upload what I just created. I tried to upload that tag, but it gave me access denied. And that's because I haven't actually logged in. So if you look at the Docker help, you'll see a login and log out command. And we haven't used those yet. So once you have your own free Docker Hub account, we can actually log in from the command line, docker login. Okay, so what this actually did was this wrote to a file that by default is in my profile under docker config. And it actually stored an authentication key that would allow my local Docker CLI to access Docker Hub as me. And this is an important point that we'll learn about later on in production, is that wherever you log in with the Docker CLI, by default, it's going to store this authentication key for your account in the profile of that user. So just be aware of that. And if you're using a machine that you don't trust, when you're done, just type docker logout. So now that we're logged in, I'm going to hit the up arrow to try to push that image again. Okay, so it seems like it's done. Let's go over to Docker Hub and hit refresh. There it is, Brett Fisher /Nginx. Now again, I didn't actually have to create this from scratch to upload it. I just simply gave a new tag to an existing image, and when I uploaded it, it automatically created a new repo based on that tag. And of course, I could fill out all the information here, and you'll see that it defaulted to the latest tag name because I didn't specify one. So I could actually go back and do the up arrow thing until I get to my tag. And I could actually give it a different tag. We're going to add an additional tag to that same image, and I'm going to call it testing. If we do a docker image ls, you'll see that I now have 3, all with the same image ID. And if I did a Docker image push, and this time I specified testing, notice how it says layers already exist. That's part of our awesome savings, right? So when we're downloading and uploading images, if there's already layers that exist, it won't bother re-uploading them. So if we go back and I hit refresh, you'll see that I now have another tag. But of course, if I just did a Docker image ls, we see, just like we saw, that it's the same image ID. And both sides of this connection know it. And if I wanted this to be a private repository, because that is a supported feature of Docker Hub, what I'd probably want to do is create the repository first. And when I created it, I specified for it to be private. And then when I push to it, the code would never be publicly on the internet. So wow, there's a lot to images and their tags. So let's just do a quick review. So as you can see, you can pretty much tag anything onto images, but they have to be in a specific format to work with Docker Hub. And you can't just call something Nginx and then upload it, because it's not going to work unless it has your account ID or organization ID in the front of it. And then I talked about how you can actually have many tags for the same image ID, and just because you retag or tag differently an existing image, it doesn't actually change that image ID. And remember that the latest tag is really just the default tag. There's nothing inherently special about it, but we do kind of assume on Docker Hub, and it is pretty much a standard there, that people use the latest tag as a way to indicate the latest stable version of their image. And I showed you how to quickly log in and out of Docker Hub from the CLI. And remember that that stores a session ID in your local config if you're on a Linux machine, and you make sure that you log out to remove that if you're on a shared Linux machine or a host, like a server. And then just a reminder, if you want to create a private Docker Hub image, you should probably create the repository first before you upload it.